Welcome back to the Alcohol Free Revolution podcast. Our guest this week has spent much of his life in elite sport. He's also worked in the city for 5 years in banking and executive search. Toby Bailey is a former professional cricketer, a wicketkeeper for Northamptonshire, who's gone on to coach all around the world. He's coached Argentina. He spent 12 years with Cricket Scotland and was part of their coaching staff on the historic day when Scotland beat England for the first time back in 2018. More recently, he coached Glamorgan, and today he's head coach of the Qatar National Cricket Team. So he knows the culture of professional sport inside out, the tours, the pressure, the celebrations, and he's chosen to do it all without alcohol. And that is exactly what we're going to dig into with him today. What being alcohol free means for him and how it sits alongside a life at the top end of elite sport. Toby, welcome to the show.
Hi, Toby.
Hello,
Welcome.
thanks for having us.
Lovely to meet you. Lovely to meet you. And I'm guessing from your current role, but you're currently in the world right now. Are you currently in Qatar?
Yeah, been back in Qatar for 3 weeks now. I just managed to get a trip home to Scotland, which was nice. And then before that, we were touring in Sri Lanka, so we were lucky enough to play some first class teams over there and some Lanka Premier League teams. And we're off to Malaysia next week to play in the Premier Cup, which is the qualifiers for the Asia Cup. So yeah, it's a busy time.
Great stuff.
Cool.
So what first got you into cricket as a kid? Where did it all begin?
I suppose I sort of played every sport, and football, rugby, tennis, hockey, the lot really. And yeah, sort of from an early age, I was sort of doing everything, and then I suppose cricket was came in a bit later, and yeah, I was sort of a late developer, I suppose, where I could sort of discovered that I was quite good at it when I was around 16, that sort of age. And yeah, my job in the summer was fruit picking, and yeah, when I was 17, I got a professional contract at Northamptonshire, and luckily after that, my fruit picking stopped. So yeah, and then I went on to university, and then yeah, played for Northamptonshire. So that's sort of I wasn't really expecting it. It was just I just played. I just played as a game, and I loved it, and I loved the camaraderie. I love the fact that you were around all of your friends for the whole day or days. And yeah, luckily, people saw me and they thought I was good enough, and then I was able to and lucky enough to make a living out of it. Yeah.
And that's taken you all over the world now, but obviously now you're coaching in Qatar. What does a typical day look like for you coaching the cricket team out in Qatar?
There is no typical
No
day.
typical day.
We've had typical days where we've had to stop training due to ballistic missiles. So,
Oh, wow.
um, so there isn't any typical day. I suppose the week works as we train 5 days, 5 times a week. We are trying to professionalize the cricket within Qatar. But at the moment, the players do work, so it's hard for them. So we have to train in the evenings, especially at this time of year, because the law states that you're not allowed to train in between. I think it's 10 and 3:30 because it is just way too hot.
Mm.
So we offer opportunities for the players to train 5 times a week. And then outside of that, we are playing or touring. So there isn't really a normal day. We're either full board, or we take a bit of time off and deload, or then we're going into tournament mode, which we're doing now. And it's especially hard for the players here because they're extremely talented, and they're all from the subcontinent. So they've played a high level of cricket before. A lot of them have played first class cricket in Pakistan or Bangladesh or Sri Lanka. But here they're here to work, and outside of that, they will play cricket while the Qatar Cricket Association are trying to professionalise the sport, which we hope will happen soon. But it's, there are stresses on that at the moment with the conflict.
Yeah, I can imagine. So take us back a little take us back a little while to when you first obviously became a professional cricketer. At that point, alcohol was still playing a role in your life. How did that all come? How did that all change? What made you decide that perhaps alcohol's not serving you in the way that you thought it did in the earlier part of your career?
Well, I was never alcohol free when I played, so I was sort of introduced to cricket in the sort of the 90s, and there was very much an old school culture to it, which was coming. It was great fun. It was like, let's make no bones about it. It was great fun, and I have a lot of stories, and I'm very fortunate to have played with some amazing people. Especially, I was brought into it in minor counties, so I mean, there was just you played, you went out, you played, you went out. It was like survival. And then that gradually got more serious as the rewards got higher. When you played for first class, when I played for Northamptonshire, and then there was a period where I was at university, so there was obviously initiations, freshers weeks, all of that sort of thing. I think it's very much you've got to prove yourself on and off the park. So there was a pressure with that as playing. So I didn't really drink during games or anything like that. So I minor counties and university and professional cricket, like when I was playing for Northamptonshire, they were sort of very, very different. It was like when I played for Northamptonshire, it was, the rewards were higher. It was my job. It was a career. I never drank around a game. One, because I was a wicket keeper, and I felt that if I dropped a catch off somebody's bowling or missed a stumping, it couldn't be due to having a night out or something like that. So I was quite strict during games. But outside of that, let's just say I probably thought that I could reward myself with alcohol to perhaps, just take the edge off things. There's quite a lot of pressure and what have you. But I trained extremely hard, and I think a lot of people were were like that at the time. And now the rewards have got even more. That again it shifted. So I certainly saw that when I went back into the county game a couple of years ago. There was a lot more discipline around drinking, which is I'm not saying that people didn't celebrate and what have you, but there was certainly more discipline from when I was in it before, which was I mean, and obviously there would be, because there was a big gap between those times. So yeah, I suppose I used it as a reward, and I used it as a de-stressor, which obviously, as we know, doesn't really work.
Yeah. Your opinion on that changes with experience, doesn't it?
Yeah, the more it goes on, the more it snowballs. And I suppose when I finished playing cricket, I walked into working in the city. I worked in banking. Well, the culture there was just incredible. And then executive search. I mean, I was given an expense account basically to take clients out to drink. So I was getting paid to take people drinking. And it was like, all my Christmases had come at once. So that sort of in terms of my drinking, it was a turbo boost to what was going on. And then also I was playing cricket at the weekends as well, trying to make a life in London and what have you. So, it was party time. Absolutely party time.
I think that was a culture for such a long time, wasn't it? And I think looking back on that, it's always hard to understand, because obviously you're playing at that high level, And understandably, it wasn't impacting the game. You weren't drinking during the games. You weren't drinking specifically around the games. But when you're talking about elite level sport, then moving into the city and working at an elite level in there, and alcohol just has that thread that runs through it where it almost doesn't make sense because you're performing at such a high level. But alcohol, we think, is helping that. We think is actually supporting that or building that camaraderie in the team. And if you go back to the cricket, was that the driver? Did you see the real benefits in sort of pulling the team together away from the game, or was it reward?
It's camaraderie. I think,
Mm,
I mentioned that at the start,
mm,
being with your friends the whole of the day. And then when you played professionally, you traveled and you were with people for, weeks at a time. And the same also when I was coaching with Scotland, and like I do now, you're away for weeks, months away from your family, and you're in hotels. There's you get expenses.
mm.
People call them beer tokens. That was a classic one when somebody asked me when I just moved I was working in the city, and they said, "Oh, who do you work for your beer tokens?" And so, it's very much a culture thing. And I couldn't step out of that to see what it was like. It was very much a cycle. It's like you couldn't even imagine going out without a drink in the city, or if you were going to socialize with the cricket team back in the day. Things have changed. Things have changed in both cultures, both environments. Definitely. I hear people in the city now saying it's not like what it was, and I'm sure that things have changed, and I know also within county cricket things have changed as well. So, but I'm just talking about my journey and how it sort of led to where I'm at now.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. Where was the turning point where you suddenly started to look at alcohol a little bit differently and think, maybe this is something that I want to remove? Was there a rock bottom moment for you, or was it like a gradual sort of sneaking suspicion that maybe this isn't serving me?
Um, it was weird. That's a weird one because I started doing dry Januaries, right? Probably about 2016, 17, something like that. And I just felt great. I felt brilliant. It was the only
Mm.
time I could sort of keep weight off, and I felt quite connected for a while and a bit more present. And then 2018, it wasn't a rock bottom moment, although when the last one you may describe as a rock bottom moment, I don't know. But in 2018, I just had a year off alcohol, and I loved it. It was just I had so much clarity in what I was doing. I was very productive. I was loving being around the Scotland team at the time. Um, had some great results. I had so much more energy. And then I thought, well, I've done a year, and um, sort of thought I'd probably had a little bit more of a hold on alcohol, and whatever that is, I don't know. Certainly I didn't think I had a problem with it or anything like that. Um, but what is that? There's
Yeah.
different levels, aren't there? So yeah, so after the 2018, I just went back into alcohol, and I suppose life moved on and what have you. And then I sort of got back into these cycles, and I moved into a different job, which was extremely stressful and under a lot of scrutiny um, from the public. And I found that the stress within that was extremely, extremely high. And I suppose that alcohol had an effect on me. And was it a rock bottom moment? I don't know. I look at it slightly differently. I was finding that I couldn't control my behaviors enough and my emotions. So I look at that as my sort of coaching model.
Mm.
So within a cricket team, I would look at the results. If the results are not working, you look at the behaviours, and from that, if the behaviours are not right, you look at the foundations. Now, I know that my behaviours and the results in my personal life and within that period were not right. So I went back to the foundations and I thought, right, I need to control my emotions and my behaviors better. And I need to take alcohol out. So I'm effectively changing my environment like I would do within a cricket team. So for instance, I'd look at it as, as a similar, do we, why are we not fit enough? Are we not fit enough because the attitude's not right, or are we not fit enough because we're not training correctly? So then you go back and you change that right at the foundation, and that will change the behaviors which give you the results. So I looked at it in terms of that because I just couldn't work it out. I was just like so emotional. My behaviors were not right. So I cut alcohol out, and I was going through a very dark time at that point, and I was depressed. I was depressed, definitely. But luckily, within that sort of foundation, I suppose, I had some good support, and that support was the Sporting Chance and Professional Cricket Association, which gave me counselling. But also my wife, who sort of dragged me out of that as well. So that was probably my rock bottom moment. And through that, just ripping it out of the environment, I could actually understand, and it took me a while, what my behaviors were, why I was emotional. And now I've just got so much more clarity on that, and I can just perform with whatever I want to do, even though the stress has come in. Like, being an international head coach, living away from your family is extremely stressful. So if I was drinking, then I'm just adding another stressor to it. So I am adding something at the foundation which I just don't need. So that was my thought process behind it. And I've been alcohol free for two years, 8 months, something like that. And so I suppose when everybody gets stresses on them and what have you, and I know that my result would have been, right, let's have a beer, let's have a wine or something like that, and then the cycle starts again and just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think I understand it more now, which is really interesting. And I'm not saying that I will never drink again. I'm not that person. And I'm not the person who says to, don't drink or what have you, because I realize this is my own experience. Everybody has their own experience and everybody has their own environment. But this is the way that I am choosing to operate at the moment. And also, I don't have any cravings for a beer, which is wonderful at the moment. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but at the moment, we are living in a stressful situation because we are in the middle of a conflict. And we have a very big tournament coming up in a few weeks, and there's other things going on. I'm away from my family and what have you. But the great thing at the moment is I just don't feel like I crave a beer or that. It's nice. I might have some crisps or an ice cream.
I just want to kind of highlight some of the insight that you said there. I thought it was absolutely brilliant, because what you've spoken about is, first of all, when you talked about being away from home, being in a foreign country under stress in terms of your job, but having that awareness that well, if I have a drink, it's only going to make it worse. Because I think for a lot of people, if you are outside of your comfort zone and you're in a different place, the go-to for a lot of people is to have a drink because it sort of chills them out for a little while. But having that awareness that it's not going to chill me, it may chill me out for 20 minutes, but the longer
Yeah, it will
term
do for 20
impact
minutes.
is going to be like way worse. And the other thing I thought was really powerful that you said there is you've effectively said, well, I get up each day, and if I don't have a drink, I don't have a drink. I'm not saying forever, because that is very daunting for a lot of people. And quite frankly, if you don't have the desire to drink, then there's no need to say forever. It's not necessary, because you don't have you don't have desire to do it. You just get up in the morning. Okay, what am I going to do today? Yesterday was great. I didn't have a drink. I carried on doing the same thing today. And I think that's really powerful for people who are listening to this show, who are perhaps questioning their relationship with alcohol, but are kind of scared off by the idea of, well, I can go alcohol free forever. That's just too big. You don't have to. You just take a break, look at all the wins, and just see how you feel the next day. And it becomes a bit of a no-brainer. Why would I go back to it?
I think that's absolutely. If you start saying it's going to be a never thing, then you just add pressure to yourself.
It's a pink elephant.
And actually, it is. It is. And also, if we're saying no alcohol, well, there was one moment where I did have a bit of alcohol, but that was after Glamorgan. We won the One Day Cup, and I was just joking myself, and I said I haven't had any alcohol for, I don't know, but at that time maybe 10 months or what have you, and I got the cup. And I drank out of the cup, and it was I had about that much of champagne, and that was it. So to say, if we're going to be truthful,
but who cares?
Well,
what difference does it make? It doesn't make a difference.
Exactly. And it was good. It was good fun. It was it was good fun, and I watched everybody make fools of themselves and have great fun on the way back to Wales. So. Yeah, it was nice. Yeah.
Well, you made my dad very happy, by the way. He's a 70-year-old Glamorgan. I mean, 70 years in terms of he's 82, but he's been a fan of Glamorgan for 70 years. I was telling him you're on the show, so he's going to be excited to hear from you. So
that feeling of saying, "Oh, forever." I don't say forever. I know. I don't say it, and I think I put a lot of pressure on myself in the first year or two to say, "Oh, am I going to ever drink again?" I still don't know if I'm ever going to drink again. If I'm 90 in a home, I don't know what I'm going to do. But at the moment, we're definitely not doing it right now. We've got a podcast, and we're coaching people not to drink, so you kind of cement that in. And I know, my heart of hearts, it's not a case of will I ever drink again. I just don't want to. That's the thing, and that's the difference. I don't have any desire to do it, and when I haven't got desire to do something, why would I do it? But I also don't predict the future in what 20, 30 years is going to look like from now. Well, 20, 30 years, I probably won't be here anyway. If James has got anything to joke around about my age, as he always does. But
well, if you keep doing your ultra marathons,
I might not be here in 2 years if I keep doing what I'm doing now. But yeah, it's just we just always put so much pressure on ourselves to have a finish line of some sort. Where actually, I hate using the journey word, but that's what it is. It's a journey. It's a journey of discovery. You're finding what life looks like without it, and actually, if we like that, then why would we go back?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
I'm really curious to know, because you mentioned it earlier on there, Toby, about obviously the culture within not just cricket, but I think in sport in general. Well, in fact, anywhere in life. I mean, it's particularly if you're British and as a Scotsman yourself, the whole.
I live in Scotland.
Oh, you got Scottish. Oh, you've got a Scottish family, though, right?
Well, okay, yeah. Well, maybe I'm an honorary Scot. I don't know. I call it home. So,
well, I'm a Welshman, so I was kind of hoping you were Scottish. But
I don't know. I don't know where I'm from. I could be Qatari. Who knows?
Bit of everything. But how, in terms of so from somebody who's right in the trenches, of the sporting world, deciding to stop drinking, how is that received by your teammates? You spoke about it 2018 when you were with Scotland. How is this all received? Did you get like what, or were you kind of, all right, brilliant, yeah, good for you? How was it?
Different both times, and different reactions from different people. 2018, it was just like, what? It was like, what? Are you serious? And people just couldn't believe it. They were just like, this is going to end soon. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, and I think people were just a little bit worried about me. They're like, well, what are you doing? It was that sort of thing. I don't think I got anybody going, oh, good on you, Toby. I very, very limited. And I think things have perhaps changed within that time. But I do remember, we had a great year that year. We had some great results. We beat England, like you said, and I remember after that win, it was just like I can remember it so well because I was so present, and I wasn't drinking, and I remember moving in to a new house like the day before, which was great, and I went back and I sat there with my wife while the whole team was just going absolutely berserk in Edinburgh. Well, like they should do. Beating the number one team in the world doesn't happen every day by an associate. So, but the second time, people were more like, yeah, that's a good idea. That you probably need to take that out of your foundation. Like I say, it was a little bit like I think people close to me were a little bit worried about me. Well, they were worried about me, and they understood it a lot more. And I think things have moved on from how people perceive alcohol from 2018 to 2000 and was it 24, 25 or whenever it was, I can't remember. There's definitely a shift, and so you'd still get the odd person saying what are you doing, but more people were more encouraging. Perhaps the older generation not so much, but people could have a beer with you. There were more non-alcohol beers like Guinness Zero and those Coronas, which made life so much easier. So yeah, it was easier. People understood. There was more support. I still found things hard to start off with, and I remember I talk about that camaraderie, after a game, and people would have a beer after the game still, and it's just that sort of ritual. And I'm not saying people would go mad at all. It would just be like one beer or two bottles, and then they'd just go on their way. Not like it perhaps used to be. And I felt left out because there wasn't any non-alcohol beers. So I said to the dressing room attendant, can we have some? And he went and got some, and I felt part of it again. And I started drinking non-alcoholic beers, with the ritual, absolutely fine. And then, hey presto, probably about 4 or 5 other players just went, "Oh, give me one of those." And because there's drink driving and what have you, a lot of them just switched to non-alcoholic, and different ritual, not the same, but still a ritual. And the ritual is very, very important. Having sitting down, discussing the game, learning about the game, learning about different people. It's a community at the end of the day. And a lot of that has been lost, where cricket teams used to go into the bar afterwards and they would relish that moment, and both teams would work really hard on, it'd be like war on the pitch, and you come off and you just have a beer. And all of that stopped. But maybe now that ritual can go again with non-alcoholic beers. I don't know. People just like go back to the hotel and they get their Nando's ordered in and get ready for the next day's play. It was,
Yeah, it's that ritual, isn't it? It's exactly that. We refer to it a lot of the time. It's you keeping the ritual, you're just changing up the ingredient, because that ritual is so important. That camaraderie is so important, and that should never go away.
Yeah.
But yeah. Sorry, James, I think you were going to.
No, I was just going to ask. You kind of touched on it very briefly there with regards to obviously the camaraderie around the team. But as somebody who's now had, you said, like I said, you've been alcohol free for over a couple of years, and you had the other spell earlier on. How do you actually feel as a coach that it sits in terms of peak performance? We've talked about obviously in terms of the ritual and and that aspect, but when it actually comes to recovery and performance within sport. What's your views on that, Toby, as a coach?
Massive, massive. I mean, you see, like I've got my Garmin on here,
Mm.
and I know what people's scores are when they sleep poorly.
Mm.
We can see them on
Do you
whoops,
track
we
that with
can
your
see
team,
them on Garmin's.
with your team? Do you
So,
track
yeah,
it? Oh
yeah,
wow.
yeah. We do wellness,
They
daily
they
wellness.
get a bollocking in the poor night's sleep. Go back to bed
No,
now.
but it's about their loads. You have to be
Mm.
very careful of their loads, especially on tour. There's just different stresses. It's not just cricket. It's being away from home. It's getting the right nutrition and what have you. If I don't sleep well, I might get a score of 50, and I feel like, oh, I'm a bit
Like a
bit
hangover,
groggy
isn't it?
today, and what. Well, and that's what
It
people
is.
say. What their scores are when they sleep all night, but
Mm.
they've been drinking. It's
Mm.
40 or 50,
Mm.
and like I mean, look, it stays in your system for a long time. You're going to be more injury prone. If you've got an injury, you're not going to recover as quick. If you want to put on muscle, if you want to get fitter, it's just going to take you longer.
Mm.
It's you're going to put on more weight. When if you want to burn carbs and what have you, it takes longer. You're basically putting a poison into your system. So that's the science behind it, obviously. So there, in terms of performance, it's going to affect your performance in terms of that. In other ways, I have seen people use it as maybe to relax night before, and I've seen some very good performances the next day as well. So I'm not stupid enough, but I think that's more of a psychological thing. Just
Mm.
getting people just to calm the night before, and obviously it's not the right way to do it, but sometimes it might work for people. You talk about Herschel Gibbs with his, record breaking 180 or whatever it was against Australia back in the day, and he was all over the place the night before. You had to pick him off the ground, and you hear stories about. I think it was Eddie Pepperell who came into the Open a few years ago at Carnoustie, and he goes, "I'm not going to lie, I had half a bottle of wine last night."
Mhm.
So
Shane Warne, legendary
yeah,
Hellraiser.
yeah, yeah. There's loads of stories. So but it's how your mind works, isn't it? If your mind's not right,
Mm.
then that's ultimately, and your body's not right, that's ultimately why you can't perform. So people use it in different ways, and I'm only talking about my experience here. It shouldn't be. It certainly shouldn't be used as a performance enhancer. Let's be fair, but there are the odd outlier, let's say, where people have had some good performances. But I don't know. It's a
Despite
strange one.
of, maybe not
Yeah,
because of,
it
despite of.
is. It's despite of, and obviously we're not going to hear about the absolute disasters which have happened when people have had a night out, and because you're just not going to hear about them. But in terms of my uh, idea on performance sport is alcohol should be nowhere near it. Let's be totally clear on that. And I'm very lucky that I work with the team that's just taken out of, there is no alcohol because of
Mm.
religion. Yeah.
And do you think that's massively part of the shift recently? And is that something, because obviously in professional sport, the the science behind it in recent times is so much more in depth now. And you're referring there to tracking everything and tracking. I mean,
Mm.
I coach, but I literally coach a handful of people, but I'm a qualified ultramarathon coach, so I see people's metrics coming through as well, and I look at a lot of
Yeah.
that and how much of the work is actually done in that recovery time rather than actually the work time. And if you're doing all that extra work and you're not getting the recovery on the back of it, then ultimately you can be undoing
Mm.
the work that you've done there in the first place. And do you feel that that's kind of shifted things now in terms of I mean, it's probably hard to say with, as you say, you're coaching Qatar, so there's no alcohol present anyway, but the awareness around the alcohol in the sport and how much of an impact it has been part of the shift.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, you talk about, well, it was a couple of years ago when I was at Scotland and Glamorgan, people know. They know. They know the rewards as well. The rewards are so much higher than when I played. And the time frame to get those rewards is limited. So people are more aware of what it does to their bodies. So people
Mm,
are, and they're professionals. It's almost like they're running their own business. So,
yeah.
it, you know, when I played for one team, whereas these guys they're playing for many teams. You'd have people playing for Scotland, you'd have them playing for other franchises. It might be a county. The same with guys who's working at Glamorgan. They have an opportunity to make a lot of money, so they need to be in peak condition, and a lot of that is flying around the world and being able to step off a plane and play within 2 days.
Mm,
If you We go back to the foundations, if you start adding alcohol into that and sprinkling it on top, it's almost like you're pouring gasoline onto a fire.
mm.
So that ultimately is the choice um, which those players are making, and they when the rewards are so high, they probably take it with a little bit more seriously.
If you were coaching in another country other than say Qatar, where alcohol's just not even in the equation, if you were back say coaching in the UK, how would you approach it as a coach with your team? Are you in a position where you could say, okay, there's no drinking, end of, non-negotiable, or do you leave the door open for people to make their own decision? How does that work?
No, I certainly wouldn't be doing that. No, you have to treat people like adults, and they have to have their, like I say, it's their career. If you start sort of bringing those things, no alcohol in, then in my opinion, you get quite a regimented, structured uh, environment, which perhaps isn't what I prefer. I like people to express themselves, and they are ultimately responsible for their behavior. And I think that actually brings out a little bit more leadership within
Mm.
players and professionals. So for me, no, it would be more to do with where the team is going, what our goals are, what are our objectives, what do our behaviors look like, and that would be all encompassing. I wouldn't go into that much detail. If people were not performing because of it, then obviously that's a consequence and that needs to be looked at. But yeah, I wouldn't be doing any bans or anything like that. I just push yourself into a corner as a coach.
One thing I'm quite curious about as well, living in a place like Qatar where it's pretty much just a dry environment, data. Well, I say dry environment, I don't mean it's boiling hot. I mean, yeah, people don't drink. But one thing that I experienced when I was spending quite a lot of time in Abu Dhabi, we were talking about it off air, was I remember going out on a Saturday night and it was just so chilled. Whereas you go out in the UK on a Saturday night and let's say it's like 10 p.m. and you're constantly thinking, oh God, something could kick off here. You're kind of like on edge just because, people are pissed and you're not sure what's going to happen. But I remember being out in the Middle East and just thinking, this is so chilled. How do
Yeah.
what's your take on that? How have you found that kind of cultural shift from the UK to the Middle East?
Um, yeah, I know what you're talking about to a certain extent. I think I think things have changed in the UK as well, though. I think it's
Yeah, no one
less.
goes out anymore. It just
Yeah,
does
everybody's
does
getting
that.
on it at
Everyone
home.
stays in. Yeah, basically.
You're getting smashed up indoors in front of the TV.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I see that to some extent, but I also have been to a couple of brunches where I have been not drinking, and there is that part of Doha as well. So people are going to let their hair down. I think though here it's less out of control. I feel like people know that they have to be well behaved if they're going to go down that route and have a lot of fun. Whereas I think in the UK, I'm always sort of wary. I'm probably looking around a little bit more and going, right, okay, there's an atmosphere here where I don't want to be, and I'll probably just take myself out of it, because you can feel that tension sometimes. But yeah, that is nice. That is nice. I do understand what you're talking about with that Abu Dhabi, and it is a little bit more chilled, and it's a little bit more. It's not as fast.
It's non-threatening. It doesn't feel, you don't feel in any way threatened.
Yeah. I agree with you there. But if you want to go out, you can go out. Yeah, the consequences are huge.
If you misbehave out there, the consequences are much higher, aren't they? It's not, certainly.
I mean, you'll just get sent home. That's it. Your visa's gone to start off with, and that's before anything else happens. So, I agree with you there. Yeah.
When that second time when you actually took the break from alcohol, how quickly did you start to see the benefits coming for you?
Well, firstly, I suppose I'll be honest. I was depressed. So having alcohol in your system is not it's not great. So it helped me get out of that depression and helped me figure things out in my head. And then from that, I had a lot of support, like I mentioned, from Sporting Chance, Professional Cricket Association, my wife, counselling, to enable me to start thinking with a lot more clarity of what was going on and within my life, and probably bringing it back into what I spoke about, that framework there, and it enabled me to be more present, I suppose. But it took me a long time to get to that point. But I wouldn't have got to that point if I had still been drinking. I'd definitely say that. So that was probably a journey for me, and it took me a while to get there. I've got to say, and I'm not saying it took me a couple of months either. It took me a good while, to understand what emotions were going through in your head. And I look back at things, and there was interviews which I didn't get, and jobs roles which I didn't get, and looking back at it, I was like, those people wouldn't have given me those roles, because I was so stressed and I was so emotional, and I would have come across like that in those interviews. And it's only when you go through and you get that clarity that you can understand it. And it's sort of like jumping out of I think you call it the jam jar or the looking glass or whatever it is, and then you go, whoa, what is that? And then you're just under this like fog all the time, and a cycle. And like I said, not like I was like drinking constantly or anything like that, but it was part of my life. And I just became so much more productive to start off with. I enjoyed the mornings. I could get up. I could like go to the gym. I could, it felt like the day was going on forever. It wasn't like my sleep was just like, I didn't have a Garmin then, but I know that I just slept like a baby. It was like, it was amazing. And I just found like I had so much more energy, much more get up and go. And then through getting to that situation, I could probably look at where I was, with as a person, um, with, I suppose, the depression and what have you. So, and to come out of that, like I say, is that what's in that foundation which influences your behaviors, your emotions, and that gives you your results. So you just got to, and I keep looking at that, and it was very revealing for me that I
I
could
think
be
there's
more productive.
when you're speaking there, I think that there must be lots of people listening who have quit alcohol, who are just listening to all the things you're saying there and going, sleep, check, clarity, check, more productive, check. They're just like, yeah, because everyone is probably just going, yeah, me too. That was the same for me. And it was definitely the same
Mm.
for us and so many people that we speak to. But it's just everybody has that there's certain core things that happen when you stop drinking that are huge pillars of your life that just improve just by stopping
Mm,
doing one thing. But one thing I'm curious to know about, you spoke about, depression and stress and things like that. One thing I think that people, when they first stop drinking, perhaps wrestle with a little bit is what fills the space instead. When you haven't got that go-to of when you want to unwind and decompress, when alcohol's not that thing, the part of the identity piece and the kind of discovery that people go through is what replaces it. What's that been for you? How do you relax and unwind now alcohol's not in the picture?
mm,
How do you celebrate? How do you celebrate, victory, for example, without alcohol?
yeah. Just before going into that, there's one other thing. I was scared as well. I was scared
Mm.
what alcohol would do. Like, I'll be very open with that. I was scared. Like, there's something in this, which is like, whoa, I've got to stop it. So I just want to get that across as well. But in terms of what I do now, I, I to celebrate, it's like I don't need to go out all night. I don't need to go and have shots. I don't need to go and have champagne and look at a credit card tab the next day and go, whoa, what
Ooh.
happened there? Um, I think it's more reflective and it stays with you longer. So there's the camaraderie around being with the team. There's certainly here, um, we have cake. We have cake. So there's that. So let's have a lot of sugar, ice cream, those sorts of things.
Love it.
Real
That's quite a
rock and
common one.
roll here. Yeah, rock and roll. Um, so I suppose walking, mindfulness, a lot more time for hobbies, a lot more time to be present with family, mornings. I mean, the mornings, like you speak to any of my friends, and they say I'm one of the grumpiest people ever in the morning. And now I just can't wait for the morning. I love the
Yeah.
morning.
Mm.
Um, it's like nobody's up. It's great. You just get that moment to yourself. Just having those conversations with people as well when when you have one, and I feel like I look back on a couple of those wins. I can remember them really well because I didn't have alcohol in systems because I was really, really present. And then I remember perhaps some of my times as when I played, when I had good performances myself, it was just an excuse to go out and let's get absolutely smashed. And I don't really remember it. So
Sure.
Mm.
yeah, that's I suppose those are the different ones, but yeah, a lot more time. It feels like you've got a full day rather than it just getting squeezed as much. And that's not because I'd be drinking every day. It's just because there's a cycle and there's a fog happening.
Mm.
Um, and it carries on to the next day, and then it goes even. And I'm not talking about getting. This is my experience, but if it's in the system, it's just there. So yeah.
Yeah, I can completely relate to that. One thing that we've not spoken about that when we first got chatting, Toby, is friend of the show, Catherine Gray, who I know you helped you on your alcohol-free journey. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I think she wrote her book, oh,
Unexpected Joys in Sober.
2017, something like that, or yeah, whenever it was. And I picked this book up in an airport, and this is probably before she was like really famous. And I was lucky enough to have some contact with her on Instagram, and we still follow each other from back then. And to see what she's done now is remarkable. But the some of the stories which she mentions in her book, I resonated with,
Mm.
and I also found the book hilarious. You know, it was a brilliant read.
She's such a good writer.
Yeah, fantastic. But I related to that, but I still probably didn't understand it. But you know, she would always, you know, just on the odd occasion, just go, you know, well done on your dry January, or well done on, you know, how are you getting on, and blah 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 blah. And yeah, a bit of an inspiration, to be honest. And certainly, if I hadn't read that book, you know, I'm sure I would have got to this stage, but you know, it might have taken me a bit longer,
Mm.
certainly. But she is the leader, isn't she? That's how I see it. She's the leader of this industry.
She's the goat.
Yeah, she is the
The goat.
goat.
She's
She
the
is the
goat.
She's the
goat.
goat. Yeah,
She
yeah,
absolutely
yeah, yeah,
is.
absolutely. Well, but it's just not. She's just so honest. It's like
Yeah.
some of the stories, you know. I can think of times when I was working in the city, and I'm just like, wow,
Yeah.
you know, that yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
And you know, for her to come out of it as well and have that clarity is an inspiration. But also, what I like is the way she doesn't lecture people as well. And I don't want to be that a lecturer. It's like she just talks about her experience and how it's changed her life, and I respect that a lot.
Mm. Yeah, you just everyone's got one of those books in the beginning of their journey, and it was probably the second book I read, but it's the one that sticks with me the most. And you can, because you're
Mm.
right. I mean, I worked in London. I was bartending in London, so I was serving most of the drinks to probably you and Catherine. But I've seen, yeah, she mentions Brixton and the Dog Star and that kind of area at the end
Oh,
of the evening and
yeah,
what's going on there. And I've been in it, and you kind of step back from it and you think, Christ, if you can be in that situation, you can get to where you are now, and you're doing it without saying anything at all. You just think, crikey, we can all get there. You know, it just gives that beacon of
yeah.
hope to everybody. Yeah, it's an amazing book, and she is absolutely the
That's
goat.
what I would find. I would just sort of get round to sort of Wednesday, and you'd be like, right, where are we off to?
Yeah, and you don't drive in London. You know, but
Yeah,
well, I certainly didn't. You know, it's just on your doorstep. You just have to walk out the front door, and there you are, straight into a bar
yeah,
or whatever. It's just, yeah, it's yeah, for sure, for
Mm.
sure.
yeah.
Toby, is there anything that we haven't spoken about today that you feel that we should have, that perhaps you wanted to communicate that we've not covered?
Um, I don't think so. I think you know, I've really enjoyed sort of talking about it actually, and you know, for somebody who you know has been had a good career at drinking, um, I you know I think some people won't know that I don't drink, and some people you know will hopefully understand it a little bit more. And
Mm,
I don't want to preach to anybody. I just want to sort of give my experiences of how I feel about it, and also, you know, if people can understand some of my experiences, then perhaps it might help them. But yeah, no, I've really enjoyed talking about it. Actually, it's been quite cathartic. So thank
and
you.
It's been great to have you on.
No, and thank you. And I mean, it's exactly that. It's exactly when you talk about your experience like you are today. And I mean, James mentioned earlier on about the people who'll be sitting there going, tick, yeah, I've got that, I've got that. But there'll also be people sitting here today that maybe are just starting out and haven't got that, and they can hear you and say, great, I've got all of that to come. Because often when those early stages, you feel like, like you said, it took for you a while. So actually to know that it's not going to be like that
Yeah,
forever in the early stages is massive to people.
I suppose there is one thing probably which I would like to say if people are deciding to do this,
Mm,
I would make no bones about it that the start is hard, and but it gets easier and easier and easier and easier as you go along. For in my experience,
Definitely.
um, and I think if you want to do it, you might have to white knuckle it for a while to sort of go one day at a time and just suck it up or find something else to do your hobbies or um, not go out. That's a toughie. It's a
mm,
toughie when you go out. I think there's more options now though.
yeah.
Um, I I would say also the longer you go through it though, the more you see, the more alcohol reveals what is going on and what it does. And that also doesn't mean that you have to stop drinking alcohol either. I'm not
Mm,
saying that. It's just, can you get a bit more understanding of what's happening when you drink alcohol? That's certainly what I experience. I would say though, there's also downsides to it, which I think you've got to recognize. And it's not be foolish to say that there's things which you're missing out on. I would say that when I came to Doha, um, I perhaps didn't have the social network which I wanted to, because when I went into a bar, there are no non-alcoholic drinks. So that's a little bit harder than it is back in the UK or in Europe, where there is a better culture for it. So if you were going into a bar in Doha, you're going to drink. You are
mm, mm,
you're having a few, and it's also very expensive. And there are happy hours where I know what you're talking about. That when you say it's more controlled and there's less tension around, but people are in happy hours, so they know they've got to get a few in happy hours because that's the cheapest way to drink over here.
mm,
So
mm,
I think I've missed some social aspects. Certainly I think I've also um I've lost a few friends through not drinking. Is that the right word? I don't know, but I think you'd always meet the same people in the bar, and but were they your friends? I don't know. Is it just you just wanted to be there and have a beer together, and that was your poison? But were they your friends? My best friends still come out and have a coffee with me, or they go and have a non-alcoholic beer, or we do some sort of other activity.
cake.
So cake, ice cream, crisps. Yeah. Walking. Shall we go for a walk? I mean, again, it's rock and roll, isn't it? But
Oh,
yeah. And I suppose the other thing which I miss, um, from being from Scotland is whiskey. I do miss that sort of the distilling of it. Where I live, there is a distillery down the road, and it's a massive industry in Scotland. But I still enjoy just going like that and just sniffing it and going, okay, I get it. And it's a huge industry which employs a lot of people in Scotland, and that needs to be recognised as well. So, like I said, there's pros and cons, but I'm just telling you my experience of it.
mm,
Well, it's a trade-off, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
you know, everything in life is a trade-off. But what you described a bit earlier on in terms of all those Me Too moments that we spoke about, that's what you're trading sniffing some whiskey for, and it's just an overwhelmingly good trade. And yeah, sometimes there are some slight social downsides, but
Mm.
when you're sleeping amazing and you've got your health's in great great place, your mental health's firing, you're killing it at your job, but that's the trade-off. You know, I don't sort of anybody that I work with, I don't say, look, life's going to be exactly the same as it was, just stop drinking. There are some things that fall by the
Yeah.
wayside, but I don't personally, I don't feel, you know, any sense of loss for the things that I don't do anymore, because I'm just so focused on all of the good things that have come out of it. And it's just, if you look at it, if you write it down on a bit of paper, all of the wins versus all the losses, it's overwhelmingly stacked in favor of all the wins. And then it's good. It's a great deal. That's how I see
I
it.
I'm with you. For me personally, I'm with you on that. And like I say, I wouldn't be where I am now. Like I say, that time which I went through, I sort of, got dragged off the floor. Um, there's no way I'd be here if I had that at my foundation, as I call it, and if I didn't have that help from PCA, Sporting Chance, my wife, to sort of drag me up and get me out of it. So, um, yeah, I mean, that is a big trade-off, isn't it?
For sure.
Big
Well, look,
trade-off.
I mean, it's been absolutely wonderful speaking to you, Toby. If people want to find out a bit more about you, and perhaps follow along and see what you're up to, where's the best place for them to do that?
So my Instagram page, Toby Bailey at EPEM Coaching, and there's www.epemcoaching.co.uk. So we tried to put all of what we're doing on there, and if you want to get in contact, then share some experiences or want to know what I'm doing coaching wise, then it's all on there. And it is quite interesting, the cricket world over here. It's very different to the UK and the full member countries. So there's a lot of stories. Yeah, maybe I'll write a book one day about associate cricket. I've got a lot of stories.
Well, you can definitely come back on and tell us all about it.
Have you and Catherine on the same show?
Yeah, that'd be good. It'd be good. We can exchange some stories about Brixton.
Exactly. Well, listen, all of that we will put in the show notes for people to refer back to if they want to find out more about that. And yeah, reiterating what James has said, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for giving us your time to tell us your story. And I'm sure listeners will take a massive amount from what you've shared with us today. So thank you very much indeed.
Best of luck at the Asia Cup as well.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's the Premier Cup. We've got to get to the Asia Cup. If we get to the Asia Cup, we'll be very happy. Yeah. And
James has already assumed you're there.
Yeah, we're in. Yeah,
we're in.
India and Pakistan. They're doing their research on us now.
Exactly.
Never heard of them. Great stuff.
Thanks, Toby.
See you soon, Toby.
All right. Thanks.